We are live. NASCAR Life in the Fast Lane, the road course at Indianapolis, Andy Lang's home track. I am in a hotel as we speak on my way to see Andy. I stopped by Cell Block C to visit his mother on the way to the track, and we're going to break down the Indianapolis Raceway break in just a moment. But first, we're going to have a recap, the Rocky recap of the other road course last week in Watkins Glen. Rocky, was the first time in 2 years that we've been at Sonoma. First time in 2 years we've been at Watkins Glen, but not much of a difference. Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, the two guys to beat once again, running 1-2. What were your takeaways last week in Watkins Glen? Another road course this week, so I definitely want to pay attention to the Rocky recap for this road course.
Yeah, like you said, Kyle Larson brought home the win in the Go Bowling at the Glen this past Sunday. It's his fifth win of the season. He just did hold off Chase Elliott, who started at the back of the field, but made a charge at the end, but he couldn't quite catch the number 5. I think he got a little over 2 seconds from him when the checker flag waved. Truex Jr. finished third. Kyle Busch was fourth. Denny Hamlin rounded out the top 5. William Byron continued his solid season with a 6th place finish. Christopher Bell, very good at these road courses. He finished 7th. Kevin Harvick was 8th. Chase Briscoe 9th. And Tyler Reddick finished in the 10th position. Joey Logano won stage 1, but then he got taken out by his teammate Keselowski a little bit later in the race. Martin Truex Jr. won stage 2. And as I said, pole sitter Brad Keselowski had brake issues all day, spinning multiple times, finishing way back in 35th. Again, I do want to mention, since the playoffs are coming here soon, a couple races to go. 2 drivers dominated the circuit last year. Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick have yet to win a race this year still. Both are currently sitting 14th and 15th in the playoff standings. Hamlin has run well. He's now tied with Kyle Larson for the points lead, as after Larson's win this past week, got him back, tied with Hamlin there. Tyler Reddick rounds out the top 16 in the playoffs as of right now. Austin Dillon sits in 17th, only 15 points behind Reddick. Buescher is in 18th. Matt DiBenedetto, 19th. Ross Chastain running real well lately. He rounds out the top 20. And as always, we'll continue to watch how this plays out over the next few races, as some of these drivers will have extra incentive to do well. And looking forward to heading to Indy Road Course this weekend.
Yeah, and by the way, we keep talking about how Hamlin and Harvick are not in the playoffs technically because they don't have a win. They're in there on points. We could get to that situation, but it's looking less likely now with Larson getting another win. Of course, Daytona, the final race of these last 3, could definitely be a random winner. That could get us to 14 different winners. And then, of course, a road course this week for a new one could be 15. But Stan Diglis, one of our loyal viewers last week in the chat after the show, said the points leader does automatically get in the playoffs. So I appreciate Stan pointing that out. It's something we had talked about last week. I wasn't sure if that was the case. I said it should be. That is the case. So Denny Hamlin, if he holds the lead, but Larson with that win very well is going to probably finish ahead of him now if he keeps running well. So we'll see how that plays out. But Hamlin and Harvick probably looking safe now with just 3 races to go and only 13 different winners. Andy, Rocky pointed that towards maybe some of the nominees for the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Unforced Error Award. Penske obviously cannibalizing each other. Quick takeaway on that top 7, if you didn't realize it, 4 Hendrick, 3 Gibbs cars in the top 7. We talked about those 2 teams last week on the road course. We'll get to Indianapolis road course here in a moment. I'm sure they'll both be strong again. But Andy, what were your takeaways, Watkins Glen and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. nominees and winner for us as well?
Well, my biggest takeaway is it just doesn't seem like the rest of the field really has anything for Larson or Chase Elliott on these road courses. This is a very, very clear cut. These two are just in a tier all by themselves. I mean, Chase Elliott on a course that was hard to pass, starting in the rear races all the way up to 2nd place. And, if he starts anywhere but in last place, he's going to win that race. And the only guy that really could, keep up with him if it comes down to dogfight at the end is Kyle Larson. Even Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, these guys that are finishing inside the top 10 are not really in the same. They're not in the mix for a win. And crazy enough, the guy that was Christopher Bell. He may be their biggest challenge, but unless something wonky happens at the end of one of these road course races, it seems like we got a very, very clear cut 1 and 2. And these guys are not exactly aging veterans. This may be the case for a long time with the way that they know how to get their cars set up and the way they can navigate through these road courses. And this season was just set up perfect for Larson and Elliott with the increased amount of road courses. I think it's going to be, I think these are going to be long races if other drivers are expecting wins. As far as the Stenhouse Award, we'll get to him later, but Ross Chastain running out of gas in the last turn, takes out, he goes from top 10 to 12th. But Brad Keselowski in the rear brakes is just, it's got to be. I mean, spinning left and right. And then to top it all off, he takes out his own teammate who was having a great run. Logano was having a really good run. There just comes Brad, in his second spin of the day or third spin. I've never seen rear brakes messed up that bad to where he keeps spinning and then he just happens to spin into his teammate who's running really good. So Brad Keselowski's rear brakes aren't working and he keeps spinning and eventually takes out his teammate, has got to be the winner for the Stenhouse Award for this week.
Yeah, and once again, Team Penske was running pretty well, as Rocky talked about. Logano was first and ninth after the two stages, finishes 22nd overall. And Keselowski's a guy we've talked about now for weeks. He, of course, is not going to be with the team next year. That's already official. I mean, we wondered how that would affect him the rest of this year, and he has definitely underperformed now for a couple months since running pretty well back in April and May and whatnot. So Penske looks like a play against for the most part right now, and Hendrick and Gibbs definitely play on teams. Let's transition over to another road course. As you said, Andy, it's very top heavy, and I'm going to throw it back to you because this is your home track. You know it well, and this is the first time we're going to see the Cup Series on this actual road course. But Andy, give us a breakdown. Let us know what it correlates to, how you're going to handicap this, what other road courses you're looking at. We, of course, had Watkins Glen, Sonoma, Coda, Road America, and then we've had some ovals like Daytona. Is this going to be more kind of like a Roval like Charlotte or Daytona in your opinion?
Yes, those are going to be the two main courses that I will be looking at. Unfortunately, they happen so early in the season and a lot has changed. But yeah, I know this course well. I went to every Formula One race that raced on this track. I've done camera work for years out there on this road course with various places. There's two main passing areas. Turn one is chaos, and you've got these guys coming down full speed ahead down the front stretch, and then it's just slam on the brakes and try and navigate through turn one. If there's a restart late, this is where you could have a random winner because I've yet to see late restarts in any series that doesn't have some kind of wrecks going into turn one. That's going to be your biggest passing area. And it's not even passing because of who can brake the best. It's who runs off the course or who gets knocked into the grass. It's a chaotic first turn. But then if you are inside on turn one, you end up on the outside of turn two. So even if you don't complete the pass on one, it's really, really hard to make it around. Turns 2, 3, and 4, there's no passing. 5 and 6 are more like chicanes. And then you have your next big passing area, which is turn 7. It's fairly similar. It's another long backstretch into a really sharp turn. Unfortunately for passing, the cars are pretty spread out at that point, and then it gets tough to make it into 7 again, because if you're on the inside, you immediately are on the outside going into turn 8. So there's really only a couple of places, and who this benefits are the guys who are very quick out of the turns, and this just falls right into the laps of Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, these guys who know how to come out of the turns with a burst of speed. They will have the advantage. I expect those two to be up at the top. We have qualifying this week, so it's not a set field. So unless something crazy happens in qualifying, I would expect the heavy hitters to be up by the front. And to be honest, I'm not really sure if anybody from behind is going to have much for those guys.
Yeah, we talk about the randomness, of the Daytona Super Speedway here in 3 weeks. It's the most random event, but these road courses sometimes can be random, but for the most part, like you said, it's not. And last week, the top 4 favorites finished 1, 2, 3, 4, by the way, with Larson, Elliott, Truex, and Kyle Busch. They're the top 4 favorites once again this week. They're all in the single digit range. And then you're literally looking at like 12, 18, 20 to 1 right after that. So there's 4 heavy favorites again, the same guys that finished top 4 last week. Rocky, the one difference, though, is it's a little more of a roval. And, Chase Elliott's dominated Charlotte and Daytona as well. Christopher Bell did get the Daytona Roval win back, the second race of the season. Andy mentioned how he looked strong again last week on a pure road course. Rocky, let's start it off. I guess, first of all, let me know how you're approaching this track. What road courses, Rovals are you looking at? And give me a top 3 prediction as well.
Well, I'm going to look at the overall track type, which is road courses. And as Andy said, we're going to key in a little bit more on the Rovals with the Charlotte race and the Daytona race. And but thing is, they are going to have practice and qualifying. So we're going to how that pans out and make sure where they're supposed to be. It's not a road course is not like it used to be. Once they threw these stages in there, used to you knew that somebody in the top 10 was going to win pretty much every road course race. They're pitting early, right gauge ends and stuff like that, and just throwing a lot of stuff off. But I will be waiting until after qualifying, which I think is Sunday morning, to do my full handicapping. But just looking at the race and the track type is a road course, you got to mention Chase Elliott here. I mean, he's just a beast on road courses. I mentioned this last week. He's third in all-time wins on road course tracks with 7 wins, only behind Jeff Gordon, who has 9. Tony Stewart has 8, and Chase Elliott's young. I mean, he's probably going to beat their mark there. He has 7 wins, 10 top 5 finishes, 12 top 10 finishes, and 17 career road course races. Average finishes 7.8 on road courses. Those 7 wins have come in the last 3 years also, where he has 10 top 5 finishes, 11 top 10 finishes in 13 races, and an even better average finish of 6.0. And let's keep in mind, last week he started at the very back of the field, still finished second, almost catching Larson at the end. I'm looking definitely at Chase Elliott to do well this weekend.
Yeah, and by the way, as Rocky said, there is practice and qualifying. Andy mentioned it as well, and it's going to be a tight schedule. We have the practice session on Saturday, but then more importantly, the qualifying's at 9 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, which means they'll be done about 10 a.m. Eastern. The race, keep in mind, everybody, is at 1 o'clock. This is an early start, so don't miss out getting your bets, your fantasy picks in. It's not a 2:30, 3 o'clock Eastern start like we've been seeing. This is a 1 p.m. Eastern start on Sunday, which means qualifying will be over at 10 a.m. Andy, we think they do a bad job getting the head-to-head matchups on a normal week. I mean, they're literally going to be out for 30 minutes maybe before this race at some of the sharp books. The other books, so a lot of the U.S. books do have them out now, and they'll keep them up all weekend, which is nice. But obviously, we'll take a look at that. And by the way, Chase Elliott, it might say he started 11th, finished second last week. But keep in mind, he was forced to the back of the field with a pre-qualifying inspection failure, or pre-inspection failure. And so he went from dead last to finish second. So what Rocky was saying, it's not like it was back in the day where you couldn't pick these guys in the back of the field. We've seen several guys do that. Kyle Busch did it a few road courses ago as well. Elliott also, I believe, started at the back of a recent road course race and came up. So starting position's not the same. Of course, when there's practice and qualifying, if they're not doing well, that means they might be struggling on the course. So it's something to keep an eye on. Andy, give me a top 3. You laid out the course really nicely. Give me a top 3 pick here. Obviously, Chase Elliott, as Rocky mentioned, has been dominant. We all know that. Who's somebody else you're looking at?
Christopher Bell. He was racing right up by the top when he got tangled up with Larson, and this was not a tricky top 3 run that he had. This wasn't like, I did something really crazy on a pit stop and like took no tires when everyone took 4. Like, he legit raced himself up there. Larson got underneath him. You can argue about who the accident was. I didn't really worry about that. I was just more impressed with how good Christopher Bell was. He won the Daytona road course. He finished second at Road America. And he ends up with a 7th place finish at Watkins Glen. Actually, 7th was good. If you get run off the course like that and wrecked when you're running up there, that could have easily been a 20th or 25th. He was able to get out and finish 7th, but even then should have been a much better finish. I think Christopher Bell is one guy that has just shown he doesn't have the fear to go up against Chase Elliott or Larson, and him and his team have really found something on the road courses. I think Christopher Bell is going to be one that could crack the top three and could maybe break up this Larson-Elliott dominant duo.
Yeah, and I talked about how we had the four heavy favorites, obviously, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, both, 2, 3 to 1. Christopher Bell is the sixth overall favorite at some books, but still 18 to 1. So you're getting the sixth overall favorite, but still getting a nice 18 to 1 payoff on him. And a guy that's obviously live. He won the second race of the year at the Daytona Roval. And as Andy said, he ran very strong last week. And keep in mind, he is now in the 20 car. We've seen how strong Gibbs racing is on these road courses. Hamlin, Truex, Kyle Busch. And of course, Eric Jones in the past has been very strong on these types of tracks as well when he was in the 20 car. Suarez also was good in the 20 car at times. So Gibbs Racing knows how to get around, and it appears Christopher Bell does also. Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com. He gave us Chase Elliott. Who else are you looking at?
You got to mention Martin Truex Jr. here. He has 4 wins, 13 top 5 finishes, 20 top 10s, and 37 career road course races. Average finish is 13.4 over the past 3 years. He has 2 wins, 7 top 5s, 10 top 10s, and 13 road races with an average finish of 7.6. Truex Jr. He does well on these road courses, and he had a decent finish again last weekend, and I'm looking for him to run near the top again.
Yeah, once again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, this is a guy that's been good on all types of tracks, especially road courses over the years. And once again, a Gibbs racer. Christopher Bell, a Gibbs racer, as I just mentioned, that whole team is strong. And Martin Truex Jr. has been about as good as anybody the last few years on road courses. In fact, if you look at a lot of the metrics after Chase Elliott, the second best road course racer the last 3+ years has been Martin Truex Jr. So a solid pick there. Rocky, you guys have each given us a Gibbs racer. Rocky's given us 2. Andy, you give us your second. We've got 2 Gibbs, 1 Hendricks right now. You going outside that box?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you one that I think has a lot of value. Really kind of outside to win, but I love this guy where his numbers are at. Rocky already brought up one Chase. I'm going to bring up the other one. That's Chase Briscoe, 17th at Sonoma, 6th at Road America, 9th at Watkins Glen. And I love that he is putting in time to get practice on these road courses. This is a guy who won the Xfinity race at Indy last year, and he is racing the Xfinity series on Saturday. So this is a guy who is probably going to have more experience at this Indy road course than most in the field. Right now, he is 35 to 1. There's a guy that finished 9th last week at a road course, and he's plus 550 to 1 or plus 550 to finish top 5. So I get a guy who's going to get experience on this track on Saturday. I get a guy who's put in his time and the results have been there on road courses, and I'm getting him at 35 to 1. And I already talked about that treacherous turn 1. If we get anything weird that happens and some of the favorites get knocked out or they get tangled up, this is a guy who I expect to be around that top 7, top 10 mark. He could sneak in there and get a top 5 finish, maybe an outside shot to get a win, but at 35 to 1, it's worth a sprinkle.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of the race on Saturday, it's interesting if you look at that lineup. We don't have Kyle Busch in it or some of the guys that often run that, but we do have 2 veteran Cup drivers that are running the Xfinity Series race on Saturday, and it's 2 guys that have not been very good on road courses. It's Austin Dillon and Kevin Harvick. So I thought that was interesting. These are 2 guys that have struggled, but will be getting a little extra seat time here. 2 favorites, by the way, for the Xfinity Series race. Austin Cendrick less than 2 to 1. AJ Allmendinger about 2.5 to 1. Those are 2 guys that have been very good, and they'll be running the Cup Series as well. Let me throw it over to you, Rocky. Give me a third pick here. You've gone with Truex Jr. You've got Chase Elliott. Who else are you looking at here for the Indianapolis road course?
Going to go with a Gibbs driver here again, Kyle Busch. He has 4 wins, 14 top 5 finishes, 23 top 10s, and 39 career road course races. Average finish is 14.4. He's going to get some practice on Saturday. He's going to get some qualifying on Sunday. We feel like he's much better when that happens. And so I'm looking for Kyle Busch to have a good run on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's another Gibbs driver. As I said last week, my preferred team I said on the show was Gibbs on the road course at Watkins Glen. Obviously, Hendrick finished 1-2, but then Gibbs finished 3-4-5. Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch 3rd and 4th, 2 guys you've mentioned. In fact, Rocky, your 3 picks went 2-3-4 last week. And like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So they've done well in the road courses. The odds are saying they should do well again this week. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, the prop master. NFL is here. College football around the corner. PGA golf, NASCAR, Major League Baseball. The prop man. You're a busy man. Give me a third pick here for the Indianapolis road course.
Well, this is going to come out of complete left field. I can't believe I'm the one talking about him, but Steve, you already mentioned him. He's getting invaluable experience on Saturday. I finally think we have value on Mr. Kevin Harvick. He's plus money to finish in the top 10. He's racing in the Xfinity Series on Saturday. That experience is going to be lights out for a guy like him. He is going to learn the braking into turn 1 and turn 7. He's going to learn the entrance and exit in those corners, and he's going to learn going down the backstretch of Indianapolis. And this is a guy, his average finish of 8.5 at the Roval and Daytona road courses. And I just think that those are quite different from Watkins Glen and Sonoma. I think too many people are going to lump all 4 of those or all 5 of those, include Road America. This is different. You're coming out off a bank turn onto a long stretch. This is not a part of the course that you're ever going to get on Sonoma or Watkins Glen. The Roval is different. And Harvick has shown that he can race on the Roval and Daytona. He's going to get that experience in Xfinity. He impressed me. He finished top 10 last week, and it was a good run. He was in the top 10 most of the race. He played his pit stops perfectly. I think this is a really good spot for him. And I'm getting plus money on Kevin Harvick to finish inside the top 10. I finally think the value is there. I'll probably be betting on Harvick this week.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point about, once again, the Rovals versus the true road courses. A Roval is a good part of an intermediate track. Even though it's Daytona, it's still kind of an intermediate, high banked, obviously. Charlotte, a pure intermediate track. And Kevin Harvick has been as good, if not better, than anybody the last 3-4 years on intermediate tracks. So you're basically making it a half road course where he's struggled, and then a half intermediate track where he's dominant. And now, as you said, he's going to get some practice. He's also going to get some extra seat time on Saturday. And yeah, just looking at the Charlotte Roval, which I think more is similar to this than the Daytona one. By the way, he has 1 top 10 at Daytona and 2. He's top 20 in both. He's been top 20 in all 3, top 10 in 2 of the 3 at Charlotte on the Roval. So I do think Kevin Harvick will be more dangerous this week. And who would have thought you'd be wearing the H hat? Rocky's going to have to throw it across me here and get it over to you here on the screen. But yeah, a little bit of a long shot. I mean, we'll have another long shot here in a second, Andy. But Kevin Harvick probably would qualify on this. And who would have ever thought we'd say Kevin Harvick is a long shot? Rocky, let me throw it over to you. Let's talk about a long shot. We didn't see it last week. Top 4 favorites, as I said, went 1, 2, 3, 4. Hendrick and Gibbs drivers finished top 7 combined. Will we see a long shot maybe in the mix this week on the Roval, the road course at Indianapolis?
I believe so. And the long shot I had, Andy's already mentioned, actually. It's Chase Briscoe. And Andy faded this guy for many weeks and made a lot of money fading him. And then he jumped on him when the time was right on these road courses. And he mentioned a lot of stuff I'm going to mention. He has no wins on road courses, no top 5s, but he does have 3 top 10 finishes in 5 career road course races. Average finish is 14.0 on road course tracks in the Cup Series. He did finish 9th this past weekend at Watkins Glen. A solid run there for him. And as Andy mentioned, he won the only Xfinity race here at the Indy road course, leading 30 laps of that race. So a solid run there for him. He's got the experience. He's probably, just like Andy said, he's got more experience than probably anybody out there in this field. And so I'm looking for Chase Briscoe to run good this weekend.
And by the way, Andy, you mentioned he's running Saturday. I'm checking the entry list. I do not see Chase Briscoe on the entry list, and I didn't see him in the odds either. So unless I'm wrong, I don't think he's running the Xfinity Series race Saturday, but you guys can double check for me.
Maybe he pulled out.
I am seeing Cendrick.
Maybe he's good.
He's
maybe
not
he's
on
like, I got enough experience. I read that earlier this
well,
week.
like Rocky said, he has one here, and he's going to get practice, of course, with the Cup Series on Saturday. So I don't think it's a big deal. But I know we got some sharp viewers. I don't want to claim anyone says you're not doing your homework, because I thought he'd be running also. I didn't see him the reason I checked deeper is I didn't see him in the odds, and that's the only reason I dug into the entry list. But I am seeing Cendrick and Allmendinger as the favorites. Once again, Dillon and Harvick are in it as well. But not too many Cup guys are going to be in it. And what's interesting is they do get practice, so probably not a huge deal whether guys are running in it or not, because they will have practice and qualifying, so we'll have a lot of data to go with. But two guys, Andy Lang and Rocky Atkinson, both mentioned Chase Briscoe. Andy, I'll throw it over to you. There's a couple other guys that start with C for their last name that we could say are long shots. I'm wondering if you're going to use one of them.
No, I'm just wondering why Kurt Busch is 40-1 to win this race.
That starts with a K.
Well, I know. I mean, at 40-1 to me, that's an underdog. This is a guy that, he spun himself out while he was leading at one of the Daytona Roval courses. This is a guy who has a win on a huge track. He had a really good run going at Watkins Glen. He got a little tripped up when with one of his pit stops, but he still ran top 15 the entire time. 40-1, I was stunned to see. I thought the price was completely out of whack. This guy has multiple wins on road courses, so I'm not sure why Kurt Busch is so mispriced, but to me he is. I think he's worth a top 10 look. I think if his pit stop would have been more online with some of the other leaders, I think it would have been an easy top 10 finish for him. So I'll look for Kurt Busch to have a good finish at a pretty insane price.
Yeah, I totally agree. We mentioned Kurt Busch 2 or 3 races ago, right? I think you were the one that mentioned him, Andy, when he won the race outright as a long shot. And this is a guy that's a veteran. He's a former series champion. He's been decent. He's been good on road courses, Rovals. He's been very good on intermediate tracks even this year. So that checks all the boxes. And by the way, viewers, Andy knew who I was talking about when I said C and C. Chastain and Cendrick are two guys that have done very well on road courses. And Chastain's a guy I believe you mentioned last week, Andy, and I tailed him with you. And as you guys said, he had an unfortunate finish there at the end, but he ran very well once again. And I'm not sure if Chastain is not in the Xfinity race either, but Cendrick is. And as I said earlier, he's the favorite to win on Saturday. So he obviously will be dangerous on Sunday. So Chastain and Cendrick, a couple long shots for me. Rocky, sometimes better than a play-on guy is a play-against guy. I believe you gave us Bubba last week. Was he your play-against? Or I know you played against him in the matchup, if not both. Who are you looking at this week? I think we mentioned Austin Dillon. I think we've mentioned Harvick, actually, who Andy's on this week. This is a little bit of a roval. So, is Bubba a play-against? Or are you looking at somebody else?
The last weekend I give a play against on Austin Dillon, and I'm actually coming back with him again this weekend. He has no wins, no top 5 finishes, no top 10 finishes in his 20 career road course races. His average finish is 22.4 on road courses. And just a little bonus, he's never finished in the top 10 on a road course race. So looking to fade Austin Dillon this weekend if we get a good matchup.
And, once again, he has not been good at these types of tracks. He is in the Saturday race. We'll see what it's worth. I'm not so sure he's going to become a great racer all of a sudden. A little bit of a roval here, so maybe that'll help him. By the way, he's about 10th or 12th on the list. He's 40-1 in the Xfinity race. Kevin Harvick is like the 8th or 9th favorite at 20-1. So even at the Xfinity level, they're not expecting Austin Dillon to do much. And he has definitely been a played against on road courses. Andy, give me a play against guy, a guy you think you want to fade this week.
Brad Keselowski. Their team just doesn't have it together. We talked about how he, when they announce he's moving teams and, he gets to start in the very front. And when your team isn't clicking, when you're looking ahead to next season, that's a perfect example of what happens. The brakes don't work. You keep spinning out of control. It's kind of a perfect synopsis of how his season has gone. Their team just doesn't seem to have their act together. Brad's driving is subpar. He's finished 13th or worse in 5 out of 6 road course races this year. That's just very unlike him. He's had success at road courses, but it's just not happening this year. So I'm hoping to get a pretty decent qualifying run out of him. I would love to see him qualify in the top 10 so I can get somebody behind him who can move up and pass him. But for Brad, it's not working this year. He's just kind of fizzling away, which is kind of unfortunate to see. I'm a fan of his, but for now he's fade material.
Yeah, I don't want to say he's tossed the towel, but, there's always 1 or 2 NFL teams every year. We see that happen down the stretch, and there's always, a basketball team here or there. And most of the time, in my opinion, guys, when it happens in any sport, it's a team that's had a lot of success, a former Super Bowl champ that maybe 2 or 3 years later has a terrible record. They just don't care, they're not used to being in that position. Keselowski qualifies for sure. This is the guy that's a former champ, a guy that's been winning for championships up till last year, basically. He's not with Penske next year. He's kind of got next year locked up already. He's kind of going through the motions, and the results had not been there. So do you expect him all of a sudden to flip a switch? I don't. So, I didn't think we'd be saying Brad Keselowski is a play against guy earlier in this season. Who would never thought we'd play against the Ninja, Andy? But I'm not disagreeing with you. He's no longer the Ninja. I mean, you might have to come up with a new nickname for him. He's like an old, out of shape ninja, kind of hanging out of the shirt,
you know. The Ninja fits because he can ninja his way to the front, but also like a ninja, he can disappear without anybody noticing. So that's kind of what he's doing right now. He's just gone.
Yeah, and the thing too is he often does well with like fuel strategy, different strategies like that. I think that's the only way we're going to see him have a good finish if something weird happens. And I guess with the road course it could, but not too likely. Keselowski a play against and Austin Dillon play against for Rocky. Guys, quick reminder, sportsmemo.com is where Rocky Atkinson can be found. He gives his best bets for football around the corner, baseball this week, and of course, NASCAR as well on Sunday. Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com, Rocket Man Sports on Twitter, and of course, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, the prop master, baseball, football, hockey when it's in season, basketball, golf, NASCAR. He stays busy. You can find him on Twitter at Bump Sports. And once again, WagerTalk.com for his NASCAR best bets and Formula One this weekend as well. Rocky, let's give a little taste of a free play on the way out here, something you're looking at. Once again, we got practice Saturday, qualifying Sunday. I know you use that heavily for your handicapping, as do I. So once again, your official best bets will be up Sunday morning on sportsmemo.com. Give us a little sample of something you might be looking at here as a free play, though, as we head into the weekend.
All right, I just want to let our viewers know where these matchups come from because there's no odds on this one at this time, but if you go to sportsmemo.com or wagertalk.com, click on live odds and go to NASCAR, they'll have all the matchups that they're going to have odds on Sunday. And that's where I get these matchups from. I don't know what the line is going to be yet, but we should get a good line here with this one, I think. But Andy mentioned this guy earlier. I'm kind of glad he did. He's finally on my side a little bit, but I'm going to take Kevin Harvick over Austin Cendrick. Did this a few races ago and took Harvick over Cendrick on a road course, and I think it was a road course, and somebody else. And I went 2-0. Cendrick went out early. I'm expecting something similar this time. And we're always talking about how Harvick is not a great road course racer, but his numbers say different. He has 2 wins here, 10 top 5s, 24 top 10s, and 47 career road course races. He's only behind Elliott with the best average finish at 13.3 on road course races. And his average finish the past 3 years on road courses is even better at 12.6. Austin Cendrick has run 2 road course races in the Cup Series. He finished 25th and 38th for an average finish of 31.5. So I'm going to go with the veteran here, Kevin Harvick, to finish ahead of Austin Cendrick.
And once again, they'll both be running on Saturday afternoon in the Xfinity Series race. Cendrick is the favorite at about 2-1. Kevin Harvick 20-1. But when you get to the Cup Series, it's a totally different beast. And Cendrick, although I used him as a sleeper, he's a guy that still hasn't shown the ability to finish. And Harvick is a guy that very rarely makes mistakes. So it's not about winning the race. It's only about beating one other driver. So, Rocky, it makes a lot of sense. You're getting a veteran guy who makes very few mistakes against an untested guy in the Cup Series. And once again, Harvick, as Andy said, has been better on Rovals overall than just the straight road courses. So Rocky likes Kevin Harvick over Cendrick. Keep an eye. There are some sports books out there with odds. Other ones will have them up this weekend. And once again, Rocky mentioned a great free odds service at WagerTalk.com. The free WagerTalk Sports Member odds screen is yours free, including NASCAR head-to-head matchups. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. The prop master, what are you looking at for a free play for the Indy road course?
You didn't think I was going to go an entire show about a road course without mentioning Ross Chastain, did? Coming right back with Ross Chastain top 10. But listen, that was just a brutal beat and a brutal loss, but the handicap was correct. He ran inside the top 10, and he was plus 125 last week. I don't understand why the odds have gotten worse, so I'll happily take plus 150 on him. He ran inside the top 10 consistently for a majority of the race, got lucky with running out of gas. And I think sometimes we get scared of a play if it loses, and sometimes when plays lose, you handicapped it correct and you should come back and probably just play it again. And that's what I'm going to do with this one. I'm not really worried about that the play lost. I'm more concentrating on that the handicap was correct. I mean, he was running ahead of some big name guys, He raced a great race. I would expect more from the same. He's shown that he can finish inside the top 10 consistently at road courses. I think plus 150 is a fantastic price. And if he qualifies anywhere near the top 10 minus money on race day. So I'll take it before qualifying for him to finish inside the top 10.
Yeah, and by the way, just looking ahead at the odds, there are some head-to-head matchups out there now. I'm seeing Logano and Harvick at Pick'em. So some sports books do have Logano against Harvick at a Pick'em price. Logano, of course, looked very good last week, as we said, a misleading finish outside of the top 10. And Andy, I'm seeing Chastain at Pick'em against Tyler Reddick. Andy, would you have any opinion on that quickly? Chastain versus Reddick there. Reddick is a guy we haven't talked about on the show.
Reddick's been good. I think these two are in a similar tier. I wouldn't give one the advantage over another. I'm looking more at Ross Chastain to get plus money inside top 10s. I'm be looking at him plus money against maybe some bigger name guys. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, he was running ahead of Kevin Harvick last week. That play Chastain against Harvick should have cashed. It didn't. So I think Reddick is a little under the radar. I think Chastain is as well until I keep pounding the drum and everyone jumps on it. But I don't know what his head-to-heads is going to be. I wouldn't play it but I'll be more than happy to play him inside the top 10 at plus 150.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier in the show, Chastain and Cendrick are both guys for me, but Chastain especially is a long shot for me. So I'm glad that you brought him up in the free play segment. And once again, recapping the free plays, Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com has Kevin Harvick over Cendrick in a head-to-head. And once again, keep an eye on odds this weekend. Odds will become available this weekend, especially on Sunday morning after qualifying. RockySportsMemo.com likes Harvick over Cendrick in a head-to-head. And Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. Andy likes my man Chastain, my long shot, Ross Chastain, to have a top 10 at plus money. And it's a situation which he's been running very well on roadcourse.com. And once again, Rocky has Harvick over Cendrick. You can find Rocky at sportsmemo.com. Once again, guys, we have qualifying on Sunday morning, so the odds will be up and down this week. In practice Saturday, qualifying Sunday. Be sure to check out the websites for the official best bets all weekend long in baseball and in NASCAR. Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com, at RocketMan Sports on Twitter.